Welcome to my basement, everybody. We have a lot of stuff going on in the video game industry, and there's a lot of Xbox news. Everybody is talking about it, and I could not think of two better people to connect with to talk about all of the madness surrounding Xbox right now than Danny Peña and Parris Lilly from Gamertag Radio. These guys have been talking about video games forever, and I think they met through Xbox, and they've got a lot of wisdom and a lot of insight about what's happening with Xbox and what might start to happen with Xbox. And I thought, let's just get together and let's hash this out and talk about it. Parris and Danny, great to have you guys. How are you both doing?
Doing great. Doing great. It's always a pleasure to be able to chat with you. So really looking forward to this.
Yeah, no, thanks for the invite. I can't wait for us to talk, man. It's been a while. I think we did it last year during Summer Game Fest.
Summer Game Fest.
At Summer Game Fest, yeah. But we were talking just before we started rolling about how busy it's going to be at the show this year. So I wanted to, and also, you know, the Xbox event is going to happen that weekend as well. And, you know, the time is right now to have a chat about this. And I wanted to take a breath because it's been so easy to be, you know, down about all of the stuff that's been going on with Xbox and just be, and I think we're all guilty of it, just sending tweets out with snap kind of reactions to studio closures and stuff. And honestly, some really bad news, some really horrible news, but there's other layers to all of this. You know what I think we should do is just kind of recap a little bit about where we're at right now. Parris, why don't you just give us some kind of insight about, you know, what has transpired over the last week and a half?
Oh boy. Just over the last week and a half, I guess the big news of this would be Microsoft, Xbox, and closing 4 studios. I believe it's Arcane Austin, Tango, what was it, Alpha? I know Roundhouse, and then I want to say Alpha Dog. Is that correct? Is that the name of that studio? Yeah.
Yes.
Closing those 4 studios, they were all under Bethesda, and just the uproar that has created because, as we know, Xbox just acquired Activision. They closed on the deal late last year, and they already had a round of layoffs at Activision, I believe about 1,900 people. So then for this round of layoffs, and let's be honest about, first and foremost, all these layoffs across the industry are absolutely terrible. All of them. It's heartbreaking to see. It's getting to the point where we're just repeating ourselves with our condolences.
Every week there's a whole new wave. Yeah.
But I think the Xbox One hit home so much because of Tango. I mean, just being completely transparent about this. You could have, if Tango wasn't a part of this and they said, hey, we closed Arcane Austin, people were going to go, well, Redfall did happen a year ago. I can understand why this happened. The other ones around house, they were talking about consolidating them into other studios, things like that. But Tango's the one that just on a personal level kind of bugged me the most because Hi-Fi Rush, obviously, being their most critically acclaimed game of 2023, they shadow dropped it early in 2023. They had said last year, it's meeting all our metrics, all these great things. We were hearing that Tango was already pitching Hi-Fi Rush 2. You know, there was the whole, we're putting Hi-Fi Rush on other platforms and people talking about that.
And that was just announced at their business meeting. Yes.
Yeah, at their business update. So for that, you know, because there's 2 parts to this. So just on that point alone, it's like, well, then what do you have to do as a studio to survive under Xbox Game Studios at this point? If you release a hit game, you told us it met the metrics that it needed to meet, but that still wasn't good enough. And then there's a second part of it for me. Danny and I were lucky enough to have Phil Spencer on all the way back in 2020, right before the pandemic. And we asked him about Japan. And he'd actually just come back from Japan, the whole thing, right? So he was talking about the importance of Japan for Xbox and, you know, everything that they're, because, you know, they've struggled there forever, for 20 plus years. So he's talking about it then. Then they acquired Bethesda. Then he was talking about Tango and how important Tango was to now they own a studio in Japan. They've still, over the years, continued to travel over to Japan. They just recently made a deal with Hideo Kojima to help them make a game, etc. So you close your only Japanese studio
that you own.
You own your foothold into that region, and now it's gone.
Yeah.
Again, me personally, if I was a Japanese developer and Xbox was approaching me like, hey, we want you to join a studio that we're creating in Japan, I would be extremely hesitant to do so when the studio that you owned, who made a critically acclaimed game, not to mention the Evil Within series, they just had almost said Ghost of Tsushima, but Ghostwire Tokyo.
Yeah.
What was good? It wasn't good enough. So yeah, I would be very hesitant.
Yeah, and so much potential for more Evil Within and Ghostwire. Yeah, I wasn't crazy about that game, but a lot of people were. And certainly the beginnings of something as well, right? Like so much incredible, I don't know, experience to build something with just a limitless kind of opportunity for growth. And you're right. And Hi-Fi Rush felt like the beginning of something, a brand new franchise for the studio and for the company. Danny, did Parris miss anything there, or do you kind of echo a lot of his concerns?
There's a lot of other conversations where I've been seeing not only the media but creators been talking about, like, should Xbox should be doing interviews or talking to the community or engage with the community? Because I go way back in 01 where I remember the original team invited me for multiple events because I just attended an event and I'd never experienced that with other companies during that time, right? If you compare Xbox and the other companies like Nintendo and PlayStation, they don't do that at all. Like I know there was a time where PlayStation was really engaging with the community back then, like the smaller creators and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
But now it's gotten to the point where, Phil been talking a lot, especially with us and other creators where in the media, where he will mention a lot of things, and now people will grab those clips and compare it to now. Like, look what he said back then, and look now. Like, they're contradicting it in a lot of things. Also with their award-winning documentary that came out. I know there's a clip that's been going around social media.
That's my voice that starts that whole clip too.
Oh, really?
It's my cool news on
that's cool.
On Lionhead being shut down.
Yeah. So that's the part where, I think this is beyond the leadership that we know. This is beyond that. And I think now, of course, Phil is the top, top person from Xbox. People are always going to blame Phil. I know there's people posting on social media saying, "Oh, Phil should be fired." I'm like, there's certain things that Phil, Sarah, and even Matt Booty and others, they don't have control, that they can't really do much. And it's like,
they have bosses.
Yeah, they have bosses and they're stuck, and they're like, it looks bad on them because they've been, I think they had the original plan where they were saying a lot of like, we want to work with a lot of developers, and we're going to let the creators develop games like whatever they feel like is cool for the company. Let's let them enjoy it and be creative as much as possible. Now things has been changing ever since the acquisition of Activision Blizzard, right? Yeah. Ever since that happened, it was money on that, acquiring that, right? Plus now you have to, because of the delay with the FTC playing lawyers, it was like a lot of things got delayed.
Yeah,
it got more and more expensive. I know the original money was what was it
69 billion. Yeah,
I think it's way more than that because of everything that's been happening behind the scenes. And now the higher ups are like, look, we gotta have income coming in, and I think that's the reason why a lot of these studios been shutting down. That's why there's a lot of layoffs. And believe it or not, PlayStation is going through the same thing. Square Enix just announced recently, was yesterday, about the company having layoffs. This is an industry thing where now companies have to make some changes that we probably not going to like. They have to make some changes for they can see income, more money now coming in. So, for example, the whole conversation back in February about games going multi-platform, right? A lot of people didn't like that because now they're saying, "Oh, Xbox is losing their brand. Why are the companies giving out these games to like their competitors and everything like that?" For me, I don't care. I think at the end of the day, I want people to enjoy the same games that I enjoyed on those consoles or even on PC that never experienced a Hi-Fi Rush or Sea of Thieves and all that stuff. I don't see that as like a bad thing, but I don't know. There's a lot of changes that we as an industry and also as a community, we have to get used to this. There's going to be a lot of changes not only with Xbox, but PlayStation's been making moves where let's release games now on PC. It wasn't like that back in the days. And Victor, you've been around for a long time too. You know how it is. So like with these
Yep.
exclusives to us now, I think is dead, man. Like that's completely is going to be smaller and smaller. The amount of companies making AAA games now is going to be way smaller than before because making a game is so expensive nowadays. So
there's so many. It's like a total confluence of all of these elements leading to this, and it's nuts. And I think at the core of games and the problems that they have right now is that they are exponentially more expensive, and there's an exponential growth in the pressure to have success with these things. But there hasn't been exponential growth in the platform holders to correlate with all of these expenses and all of this pressure to get these games out there. The install base around video games has grown, but it's not crazy growth. It's not cell phone sales every quarter type growth, and because they cost so much freaking money to build, like $300 million to build a Spider-Man game, which I love, but I question, like, wouldn't a $100 million Spider-Man game still be a lot of fun? Maybe it wouldn't look quite the same, but wouldn't it still be a lot of fun? And there's all of these elements. And what's nuts for me is I cannot help but notice how many billions of dollars Microsoft is also investing in artificial intelligence right now. Microsoft right now is the leader with OpenAI in terms of owning a sector of AI. And so I keep thinking, like, there is this pivot thing that's happening with development studios and publishers where and you have Andrew Wilson from EA going out there talking about he can't wait for developers to kind of incorporate AI into their development. And I see a lot of developers talking about, no, that's exactly what we don't want. But it does feel like we are, because the news is so constant and we're talking about these layoffs and all of these struggles that these billion and trillion dollar companies keep having to reach people. It does feel like we're sort of laying the groundwork for some of these companies and studios to adopt AI into the building of this material. And it's really hard for me not to see that with Microsoft, because right now they are arguably the biggest purveyor of AI, tools and investor in AI tools on Earth. And also in video games. And, smart people were probably kind of connecting the dots there. So that's what I am thinking. And of course, now the rumor is that Microsoft might be acquiring TikTok if they actually go forward with the ban. And, what do games and AI and TikTok all mean for Microsoft and the way that it reaches its customer base. But the other thing that I keep thinking about too is that Nintendo doesn't do any of that stuff. Nintendo says we make games and we make systems for those games, and people like to make movies and theme parks based on our games. And Microsoft is busy trying to own all of these different quadrants. They're trying to out Netflix with their Game Pass, and they have all of these other concerns and issues. And Sony does too, although PlayStation has been so successful that I think it's probably the most important part of PlayStation, of Sony corporately that I can think of right now, but maybe not. But Nintendo, it's like, no, games are the most important thing. And I wonder if, that kind of attitude from Microsoft corporately, which is a hard ask, would have made the difference in a situation like this, where the whole world can see that it just feels like a huge mistake to let a company like Tango close down. Even if Shinji Mikami leaves, it's like, well,
right,
that sucks, but why don't we just set up another studio with Shinji Mikami, because Japan really is important for us, especially if they're going multi-platform.
Yeah, and let me tell you, man, when playing that game, Hi-Fi Rush, it reminded me of like old Sega. It reminded me of like Sunset Overdrive, like games that I felt like it had potential to be like a big IP for the Xbox. And it's hard. Like I feel like This game got a lot of awards. The reviews from a lot of the media has been very, very positive. And this, I just don't understand like why Xbox would shut down the studio like that. Especially where, like what Parris was saying, they need the Japanese support.
Yeah,
and this could be an opportunity for create great games that now you're going to have a whole new audience that's going to be not only buying the game but also buying the console, or maybe getting to the ecosystem of Xbox in different ways. So I don't know. We'll see what's going to happen, but I'm wondering what's going to happen next month, especially with like the Xbox Game Showcase.
Yeah,
are we gonna see any surprises? Like right now, everybody's not really too excited. I think the majority probably at the end are gonna forget with all the negativity, and hopefully we'll change some minds. We'll see once everything gets announced, man.
That was going to be my next question to you guys, like, because you've both been covering all aspects of the business for so long. Parris, what's it like for you to see Xbox have a business update event at all? Like, why do we have to hear about how they're perceiving their business? And isn't it strange that that's where we've come to? This is supposed to be a medium of artistry and fun and joy, but now we talk about the business fundamentals of Microsoft so much and what that means for gaming.
I think at that moment in time, the rumors started to get out of control. And I think their core audience, their hardcore community customers were starting to be concerned. And I think that business update was a way to kind of calm people down, calm fears down. And it kind of did give you a peek into the ugly side of this thing that we love, which is the business side, which is the thing that is paying the bills. This, unfortunately, is a necessary evil. That evil might be a strong word, but you get my point of they have to do this and I think Phil Spencer even said it during that business update. They're going to make decisions to protect the business of Xbox for the long term. And that's kind of what we're seeing right now. A couple of things I do want to pivot back to that you're just talking about. Matt Booty, not the most popular person in the world right now.
Yeah.
Because he's in charge of studios. So he was the one that had to, present the news that they were closing those studios. But, due to, again, people like Jason Schreier, some of the reporting, we find out the town hall that he had with Bethesda. One thing that he did say that I do agree with is it's a little hypocritical in the moment, but he mentioned they need to make smaller games, and they didn't that are, to prestigious quality, or however the phrase that he used it. I agree with him in this sense because he's talked about this before too. Development cycles are starting to take way too long. And you mentioned Spider-Man as an example of a $300 million budget, which is crazy to think in this day and age, but that's just kind of where we are. So budgets are out of control. It's taking 5, 6, 7 years for these games to come out. Think about Hellblade 2. We saw that game in 2019. And here it is in 2024, and it's finally coming out as an example. So
we don't even have a Naughty Dog game announced for PlayStation 5. And they're going to release a PS5 Pro.
Yeah, I mean, when you even think of it in that sense, just on the PlayStation side.
Yeah.
I mean, Insomniac's going to have to get back surgery because they have been carrying PlayStation during this generation with all their titles. But this goes to the point of what I'm saying, that development cycles are taking too long. Budgets are out of control. This is why we're seeing all these layoffs are awful. We all agree on that. But I want to bring up Nintendo because you mentioned Nintendo. It's always funny when we talk about this stuff. Well, what about Nintendo? They don't have to do this. Nintendo figured it out. They have not tried to compete on the power narrative for hardware since the GameCube. So they deliver underpowered hardware at a profit because they don't lose money when they sell their hardware. And they have the advantage no one else has. They've been doing this for 40 plus years. So they have legacy IPs that they have curated over the years across.
So does Sony
genres.
and so does Xbox, but they squander those opportunities.
And that was exactly my point. You're exactly. Whereas Nintendo has not done that. Like you mentioned movies, the Mario movie, everyone loved it. They're about to do a Zelda movie. Everyone's going to go see it. So,
dude, I just played Endless Ocean. I just streamed a little bit of that. And Nintendo celebrates a release like that. That's what is so freaking amazing about the way Nintendo does it. And it's like we they say they put it up like a little balloon and they say, here's our latest video game gift. We hope you enjoy it. And it will be of every scale. Like you'll have some wacky idea and it's right next to something they know will be successful, right next to a Zelda and right next to a Mario. And it's so refreshing to think of the way that they do it. Plus, and as we're all saying here, they don't overspend on the way that they put all of these things together, or they hedge their bets. And honestly, that $300 million for Spider-Man, quote, that's probably one of the only games where that is justified. But what's not justified, in my opinion, is locking it to one machine, is to say you can only play this very expensive game on this machine. And what did that lead to? Layoffs at Insomniac.
So you actually bring me to another point, and I had a few people that were kind of grumpy with me when I said this. I was on XCast some weeks back when Final Fantasy VII Rebirth was coming out, and because I played the game, enjoyed it, thought it was great because I'm on an Xbox show talking about a PlayStation game. So I made the comment that I thought it was almost criminal, and I probably shouldn't have used the word criminal, but the point was that game was locked down to the PlayStation 5 only, that it was not on PC, that it was not on Xbox, because you're limiting how many people get to enjoy that game.
Yeah.
And what happened this week? Square just basically came out and said that, hey, we need to go more multi-platform with our big titles. We cannot be locking ourselves down to one platform anymore because, again, these games cost way too much money to make, and you're not getting the return on your investment by being on one platform. It's just the math just isn't working out anymore.
It's amazing because it's a reckoning based on expense to make these things, expense for the consumer, and Game Pass has thrown a monkey wrench into all of that. There's, developers getting lambasted because they choose not to be on Game Pass because that is a big value equation for some players out there, which I understand. So major confusion in the marketplace that way. And then all of these exclusives and the way that they are tied up and what machines they are available for. And all of that says to me, which is my overarching comment on all of this, is that these kinds of stories and this kind of information about video games is antithetical to growth. It is the absolute, the last thing that a busy person who has a 9-to-5 job, who doesn't spend all their time watching YouTube and Twitch videos about this industry, wants to give a crap about. They want to be able to just go to any game store and press, I want to play Spider-Man. It's never going to happen with Nintendo properties, but I want to play, Halo. They don't want to think about all of this stuff. And the industry, I think, needs to just wrap their arms around this. They need to get it out to people. It's the content that matters. It's not how it's siloed. It's the content that matters. Exactly. And also, why keep making so much content that eats the ability for players to try other content? Why is there so much effort to take all the time, all the oxygen that a person might have for the broad scope of entertainment out there, and take it all and say, no, you're going to be locked in this for thousands of hours or 500 hours or whatever, and it just seems so ridiculous, and the thing I keep thinking, coming back to, is like HBO and Netflix and a lot of the UK studios and stuff. When they make their linear content, a lot of them now are thinking, short form. They make 6 episodes or 10 episodes, and they make a statement with that work, and they're out, and I feel like the video game industry could really learn a lesson there, especially if we're doing a lot of streaming and subscription stuff. It's like, God, we have so many things against people attaching themselves to this work and finding the time to play for this work. We're all in it. And anybody that's watching this and listening to this, or Kind of Funny or Gamer Tag Radio, we're the converted. We know this is the best entertainment there is, but the business needs to reach the people that are curious, but they don't have the time to care about it. So they'll turn on the bloody Kardashians and just lose their mind on something.
100%. Yeah. and here's the thing. And then we talked about this on our show, and also we had this conversation back at DICE back in February in Vegas and stuff, where, when you have the same business over and over again throughout the years and things are not changing, you have to make some changes no matter what. There's going to be things that we don't agree, but it's part of the business, man. So like one thing I mentioned to Parris, I'm like, think of it as like HBO Max. There's people that doesn't want to subscribe to that, right? But they love HBO Max content, right? So HBO will give like the older content, like, you know what, let's have it on Prime Video first season, second season. But if people want to watch the rest of, let's say, those also the Sopranos, they have to go subscribe to
give them a taste,
Max, right? Give them a little taste. So that's what I see when Xbox announces of like releasing these old games on all the platforms, is just give them the gamers or new gamers a little taste. And if they like it, hey, come to our ecosystem, you know, like in different ways.
Yeah.
Either through mobile, cloud, PC, Xbox, console, whatever, you know. But I see that, but a lot of the gamers nowadays, they don't really see that. They see it as like, what is the point of me buying Xbox? What is the point of doing this and that? I'm like, the gaming industry has to change. It's we can't be doing the same exact thing that we've been doing now for like the past over 40 years. It's not going to work, you know?
There's one thing that they should continue though, and Nintendo got ahead of it, and they've put out that they are going to continue to support physical media. 100%. And the rest of the industry is really pulling back away from that. And really, like, we're seeing the Helldivers, you know, just the nonsense that erupted over PSN accounts, and now it's with Ghost of Tsushima, where PlayStation is actually ripping the opportunity away from countries that don't have PSN to be able to access this content. And that's just preposterous. And, you know, maybe the PC space has kind of jumped the opportunity to ever go back to physical media, but PlayStation and Xbox certainly haven't. And I feel like the collectability is something that they should also be thinking about. There should be this idea that, you know, you pick up a piece, you pick up the physical content, you pick up the disc. And I know this sounds like, you know, like utopian at this point, that and impossible, because it just feels like we're moving so quickly away from this. But Nintendo got right in front and said, no, we're going to continue to support physical media. And I feel like if PlayStation and Xbox both said, you know what, we can do physical better, and we're going to do everything we can to put the whole game and work with our partners to put the whole game on the disc for those people that want to buy these things and have them in their collection, and they go to the store. Because right now it's all tied to accounts and down day one patches and having to update and being
always
locked
online.
out of content.
Always online.
Always online.
Yep.
And
you know, I buy a lot of vinyl.
Yeah.
So in the music industry, it's kind of the same thing. Like, artists just release their tracks through the music streaming services, and once in a while, you see some of the artists that will have like a limited edition physical of like a cassette, CD, or vinyl of that album. You know, the video game industry could do the same. Where I know recently they could do the same thing. Like I think it was like 8-bit. And I am 8-bit, right? That's what the company.
I am 8-bit.
Yeah. They announced that, and this is a while back. They announced that they were going to have a Hi-Fi Rush as a physical version, right? I'm buying that like day one. Once it comes out, I'm all in, right?
Wicked. Yeah.
So I would love to see.
Talk about a collector's item now.
Yeah, but I would like to see that type of thing in the future with other games. It doesn't have to be day one, but at least release some type of physical media. Like, I would love to see that with Alan Wake 2. I love that game, you know? So why not have
a total mistake that's not out there.
Total mistake, yeah. Because there's people that don't use doesn't know anything about like the store. They're still used to buying games through the store, through the retail store. Locally,
I mean, it's so there's something so precious and beautiful about that. And yes, it's old school, but you know, there's a big reason why retro's exploding right now. People are playing all kinds of classic stuff. They're remembering how cool that whole moment was. And the business is doing everything it can to move quickly and to forget all that stuff. And I was kind of like, okay, because for me as a reviewer, it's like, okay, just get me the game as quickly as you can so I can get into it. I'm fine with it. But I totally understand that collector mentality. And then when Nintendo says, nope, physical, we're still supporting it. It's like, yeah, that's what the whole business should be doing. They should figure that out.
100%.
Now I'm going to be devil's advocate.
Oh God,
yeah.
because I am an all digital person. Everything that you said, I agree with. I do think there should still be a place for physical media. Don't get me wrong on that, but I am pretty much just an all digital person. And
me too.
And it's so funny when I think about music, like my CD collection from the 90s is in a storage box out in the garage. And I go look at it. It's like I'm going to a time machine. But all that music now is easily available to me on whatever device.
CD prices have gone up though, Parris. So you could probably sell some of those.
Right. It's crazy. But the point I'm making on that is, at what point do we just move ahead? Because all digital just seems inevitable at this point. As much as we might love, not, collective items, things like that, I get it, but it just seems inevitable that we're headed towards that all digital future, and physical media has just become more and more niche.
I think that there's an inevitability, but when Nintendo is saying, nope, we're there, I think you follow the leading companies' direction, right. And even what they did with Metroid last year with Metroid Prime Remastered was beautiful, because they released it on the day. They shadow dropped it, just like Hi-Fi Rush was shadow dropped, and those were wonderful moments for the games industry. But then they said, if you want the physical, it will be available a month from now. And that gives the consumer time to say, I want to purchase this and pre-order it. And it gives the manufacturer time to know how many to make, and how many to get out there, so there isn't surplus sitting on the shelves. I think the whole idea of it being greener and more immediate and more accessible, and updates are super important in this day and age. But I think we're seeing the fallout from all of that too. Like, there's just cost after cost after cost when these games are ever persistent. There's never an off button on them, like the development, it never ends. They ship, and it's like, well, we've just started. How many times have we interviewed team members for these games where they say, well, we launched our game, but it's just getting started. This is just the beginning. And I used to have excitement about that, but now it's colored with like concern for these people.
Well, I mean, look at the example of, I don't know when this is going to come out, but the Starfield update's coming out tomorrow.
Yes.
And there's a classic example of exactly what you're talking about. That game launched in September of 2023, and here we are in May of 2024. And it almost feels like now we're getting the 1.0 version of what that game should have been at launch. And Cyberpunk is another one that we saw. Took them years to finally get that game to where it truly needed to be. I agree, because like the day one patch is just like a normal behavior now. That every game that comes out is going to have a day one patch. And to your point, they're going to continue to iterate on it, month after month, year after year, depending on how popular the game is. So there's never, during us old people, during our era, during like the NES or Super Nintendo, you bought Mario 3. That was Mario 3. There was no updating it, changing it. That was the game, because you only got what was on the disc. So I do agree there should be some limitations, but I will spin this all the way back to when we were talking about game development. These games take so long to make now that if there were shorter development cycles, maybe they could have more time in QA so that they are properly polished and feature complete when they quote unquote launch.
I mean, you guys have been covering this stuff right from the very beginning of Xbox. You've been there for all of it. And the question I want to pose to both of you, because I think about this all the time, and I've been covering this since before Xbox, visiting these guys as they were coming up with the dream of Xbox. Are Xbox Series X games more fun to play than Xbox 360 games?
No, I can say that without a doubt. No.
Now the games, no, but I think there's certain things, like certain features, that I feel like I wish I had that back then, like the whole switching games, or that type of thing. Like that's pretty cool. But games, no. I think 360 had so many classics. It's going to be really, really hard to beat. Really, really hard to beat.
And I mean, this is what I think about too, because Nintendo. God, we're just like, I sound like such a Nintendo butt kisser, but Nintendo really just they don't really think about all of the, the beautiful little additions to make it all more seamless for player outside of games. They're thinking of how do we make this game cooler? Like how do we make this, if we're going to make a Zelda game, like they didn't need to make Tears of the Kingdom on the Switch. That could have been easily a Switch 2 experience. They could have easily kept it for another year or two and just port, but they decided to, and they made it amazing, even if you loved Breath of the Wild. And, they did it within a console generation. But Nintendo is always thinking about that. They're always thinking about their software experience. And I feel like we have gotten into this place where the ease to enter these disc-based experiences, these huge games that we download and put onto our hard drives and stuff is way better. It's way more immediate and way faster and a lot cooler to just jump into this material. But we hit this kind of sweet spot during the PS3 and Xbox 360. It's like the developers started to get close to photoreal with the technology then. They had a real understanding of what the vernacular of 3D development was and 3D game design was. And but it wasn't so outrageously expensive that there wasn't room for experimentation and risk taking and, wacky ideas. And, we were building daily television back then, and with a bunch of different teams, every week it was like a truck backed up with a whole bunch of AAA or AA experiences that were really cool. And what I keep thinking about is we've spent a lot more, or the game companies have spent a lot more to make the games flashier, but not necessarily better. And maybe the decision now is not to make every game The Last of Us or to try to compete with what Naughty Dog can do. Certainly some games like Spider-Man and The Last of Us and stuff, I think deserve that, but I don't know if every game does. And we're learning from Prince of Persia, although that didn't sell very well, Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, but Animal Well, and other titles, they keep coming out and reminding us that play is the thing, that the fun of the experience is really the thing. And I keep thinking, man, to have the tech that we have now with the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, but to run stuff that's at the fidelity of the Xbox 360 and PS3 would be insane, especially if the development cycles weren't so lengthy and so expensive, and so that constant flow of these new ideas could keep coming out. Like right now, it feels like we spend a lot of time in wait mode and in hype mode and anticipation for these big juggernauts. And I feel like we had our hands on them a lot sooner back then, So
yeah,
I don't know.
You know what? I would love to see? I would love to see new IPs. Like I get it, Gears and all this stuff, like stuff that we see every time. But like the feeling, and I still remember the feeling, remembering the announcement of Hi-Fi Rush, and they just dropped it out of nowhere. Like, and then I'm playing it, and I had like one of the best, amazing times last year with Hi-Fi Rush. Like, those are rare moments, man. But if we still do the same old every year, I don't know. It's not fun to me.
Here's the problem.
It makes money. It makes money, of course.
Yeah. The problem is you have your Callisto Protocols, you have your Immortals of Avian, you have your Lords of the Fallen, but then no one's buying them. So those studios go away because, again, you have these huge teams that are making them with these high budgets. So the risk factor is extreme that if the game doesn't land and, again, hits a certain metric, your entire studio's at risk. Hell, we even have established studios with track records and resumes like a Rocksteady who just came out with Suicide Squad. Yeah. I hate saying this. Trust me when I tell you I hate saying this. I'm waiting on that announcement to come out that the studio either closes or there's severe reductions there because of one game, because they invested so much into it. So I do think, just along those lines, we have reached a point in this industry where I don't know if the bubble has necessarily burst, but we're at the red line of where we can go. And I think what you were just talking about, as far as that 360 era of gaming and the fun factor of it. And it seemed like we were getting things a lot quicker. I don't think it seems like, I think we were. And that's kind of the whole point. Like, I remember BioShock. I remember seeing BioShock at X06. They announced it.
Yeah.
Then it was at E307, and then we had the game. And it was like boom, boom, boom. You know, it was like, oh wow, new IP, see it a couple times, and now it's out. We're at a point now, you'll see, I don't know, I'm just pulling something out of the air. The Last of Us, I swear to God, we saw that at like 5 straight E3s before it came out.
No, but
Last of Us Part 2? Yeah.
But that was more PlayStation because they
no,
needed
but you
more
get my
content.
point. You get my point, though. You're announcing it.
Yeah.
Well, Hellblade's the perfect example of this. We saw Hellblade in 2019.
Yeah.
And it's just now coming out here in 2024. So,
no, here's the perfect example. Naughty Dog gave us Uncharted 1, 2, 3, and The Last of Us on the PlayStation 3.
Yes, that does not happen.
We're about to close out the PlayStation 5 era and go to the PS5 Pro, and we still don't know if Naughty Dog's got a game ready for us to show us. You know, we'll probably see it sometime this summer, but
think
it's
of this.
Crazy.
Think of this, going back to the 360 era. We got 4 Halos on the 360.
Yeah.
Wow, that is true.
You know,
that is true.
Two, 3 ODST and Reach. We're all on the 360. I mean, that does not help. Wait, 4 was on the 5.
I think it was
of them. 4 Halo 4 was also on
2
there.
was on the original Xbox.
You're right. No, you're right.
Yeah,
that was
2
original.
was on the original
right
Xbox.
at the end of the original.
So Halo 3 was the first.
So we did get 4. So 3 ODST, Reach, and then 4. We're all on the 360.
I know. And
and
those games were just as fun as Infinite. Infinite was awesome, but you know what Infinite felt like to me? It was like going back to the 360 kind of vibe. You know? And,
we got 4 Gears of War as well.
Yeah.
4 Gears of War.
And there's an argument to say maybe that's too many.
Yeah.
Again, looking at what Nintendo does. I just keep kissing their butt right now. But like Nintendo says, no, let's just do one Mario Kart on this generation. And we'll keep adding to it now because the technology is there. But let's just do one.
But see, I'm glad you brought up Nintendo, because think of Mario, like you just brought up Mario. So what have they done? You got an Odyssey. You got a 2D Mario. You got the Mario Kart, all in the Switch generation, and they're about to reset that again when the next Switch comes out, because we're getting a 3D Mario. They'll do a new matter of fact, we got 2 different versions of a 2D Mario on there. But the point is, it never felt like too much. You were excited every time one of those came out because they were different enough. Not to mention Paper Mario, Mario RPG, all that stuff is coming too. So,
well, 2023 was an amazing year to look at what Nintendo did, because they had F-Zero, they had Fire Emblem, they had Advance Wars. They finally brought that out. Like, they just had every scale and size. They'd mastered Metroid Prime remastered, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Every one of their characters was hit. Mario Wonder. They got something for every quadrant of fan that they had in one year. And it,
you forgot,
and they weren't all super expensive to make, except for probably Tears, which is a heavy budget. But the rest of them felt like they were all, manageable in terms of expense, not putting studios out of business.
One thing that Nintendo did, I was like, man, this was genius. Okay, this was very, very smart of them doing, was launching the Switch, and then every month they had one exclusive game. Some were new, and some was ported from the Wii U to the Switch. That a lot of people never played it never played it. So this is going to be like their first time playing it. And one other thing too, like I remember having a conversation with Peter Moore, and this was for like the 20th anniversary of the Sega Dreamcast. Yeah, I just wanted to know, like, how was it behind the scenes? Working on that console and releasing all these games. And one thing he said to me, because I said to him, like, man, Dreamcast had one of the greatest launches I ever seen. Like, so many great games on day one. How was that? He was like, look, that was good for the gamers, bad for us, because what happened after that? It was just
huge
dry.
Gap.
Huge gap of like nothing released for the Sega Dreamcast. So that thing that Nintendo did was super smart, where there was always content, always, for the first year. And now last year, like you were saying, the same exact thing. So I think we're probably going to see something like that with the announcement of the Switch 2. So we're probably
Yeah.
going to see something like around September, maybe October, release like a trailer of the system, and then
Yeah.
have like a press conference around early next year, maybe like around January, February. Have the price, all the games announcement, everything. Have like maybe some hands on in New York or LA, right, separately from Tokyo, and then
Yeah.
from there, March release all those games, and have every game that was released from the Switch 2 have it available on there. So there's going to be so much content for people that are probably going to play Nintendo for the first time. They could play the Switch games, the new games, So
how much do you think
smart.
Nintendo's success is about consolidating its handheld and its console divisions and just having one machine that they were focusing on and kind of showing us? And now I know you guys are huge fans of the Steam Deck and the ROG Ally, as I am. This sort of handheld PC world, and Xbox is rumored to be thinking about it, and PlayStation is rumored to be thinking about it. How much do you think that contributes to why the Switch is so successful?
I do think that is a huge contributor to that success. I think in a way, Nintendo kind of cracked the code. You brought up Microsoft. I kind of expect them to do something similar going into their next generation, because even though you now have a hybrid device that acts as a mobile device, but it also can replicate the console experience at home, and your developers have one set piece of hardware that they need to worry about developing for. Now, clearly with Microsoft and PlayStation, that would be different because they're probably also going to have to scale this to PC, things like that. But the thing that you would stick under your television or have with you on the go is literally the same device. So I think that did help Nintendo kind of refine their development process. For sure.
Do you think that that's what the future for Xbox and PlayStation will be as well?
I think so, because I think we're getting close.
Something similar.
I think we're getting close. Like a good friend of mine, the Fox, he's a YouTuber. He's been saying since the 2020 that the Series S could easily be a handheld device, and he's given his hardware technical reasons why it could be. So I'm not saying that's what Microsoft is going to do, but we're seeing the use cases now with the Steam Deck, with the ROG Ally, that as battery life continues to improve, I can see them, and Sarabon has already talked about this huge technical leap, which I'm assuming is probably going to be some AI and machine learning stuff. But I can see them next generation going, your Xbox, take it wherever you want. You can take it here, you can take it there, plug in your TV. It all does the same thing. I can totally see them doing that.
Does it confuse the marketplace if it's sold alongside something like the Series S and the Series X?
But I guess that's kind of the point I'm making. I think you don't do that.
Yeah, I think they just pivot right away.
Yeah.
And does PlayStation do that? Do you think the PlayStation 6 is a handheld?
Seems like they're not. It seems like they're talking about potentially going back into another handheld like the Vita. But I'm expecting them to still do a full-on console that would be the PlayStation 6.
I mean, all they have to do is like one of those GPU dock type scenarios where you pull it out and it's still got enough fidelity to run at like PS4 Pro or better, and then you dock it and it's brand new bells and whistles.
And that's what I'm thinking Microsoft is going to do, that exact scenario. That's what I think it would be. Now, I will slightly contradict myself and say, but I can also see Microsoft having an enthusiast box that is high end, that may be way more expensive than we're used to for a console, but that is for enthusiasts that want something that does constantly sit under your television monitor that rivals whatever the current high-end PC would be, tech would be at that time. So I think they got options. Clearly, they're not giving up on hardware, as some people were worried about a few months ago. But it'll be interesting to see.
How do PlayStation, Danny? How do PlayStation and Xbox get out of this arms race, which doesn't seem to be serving anybody? The players aren't getting enough games. The developers are overworked, and the people that manage those budgets are facing unbelievable crunch in terms of how much money they have to grapple with, and the pressure to make a success out of these really expensive games. For Christ's sakes, Insomniac had to lay off people. if there's any developer on earth that has proven themselves to be, more formidable than what Insomniac has been able to do over the last couple generations and the last several releases from them, I can't see it. I think they're arguably the best game makers we got right now, and the fact that they had to let people go. I mean, that just blows my freaking mind. Honestly, Danny, do you think they're going to be able to figure this out or what?
I mean, the only way, and I know a lot of the gamers don't like this, release multi-platform, those games multi-platform on other consoles, other devices, so more people could
day and date.
So look at Helldivers 2 was a huge success. Why? Because it came day to day. Imagine that game only would have come out just the console, just PS5, and that's it.
Yeah.
You think this would have been a huge success like how it is now? I don't think so at all, because there's a whole new crowd that maybe they can't afford another console, or they only play just one device or just PC and that's it. They would love to have a game available there from like Xbox and from PlayStation, from Nintendo too. And I think I think that's the solution, is have these games multi-platform. And I think it will be a huge success for the studio and publishers if they manage to do that. Mm-hmm.
You agree with that, Parris?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty in step with what Danny is saying. It's just inevitable at this point. I think what we're seeing right now is people don't like change. Yeah. That's what it really comes down to. People don't like change. They're going to fight it kicking and screaming. But, Danny has said it. I've said it a million times. If I get to play the game, I don't care if someone else gets to play it on some other device. Why does it matter? And if that's going to ultimately keep this industry that we love thriving, and you were just talking about developers a second ago. My biggest worry that I've seen with this, all these layoffs, is we're going to lose a lot of senior talent. Yeah. Because I can tell you right now, again, we're older, we have families. If I'm a developer, that means I'm really good at whatever I'm doing. I don't necessarily have to do it making games. There could be another industry that I could pivot into, because taking care of my family comes first, not trying to chase what was my passion, which was gaming. And that's what
and not just senior talent either, too. Like a lot of people coming out of schools, a lot of computer science majors.
Why would you do it? Absolutely. And that's the thing. If I'm coming up now, why would I want to get into gaming when I forget I forget it was CNBC or whatever. The dream jobs used to be to work for Microsoft, for a PlayStation, Nintendo, Google, all that. But then you're laying everybody off. Why would I take that risk? I should go somewhere else where I know I have stability, because right now there's no stability in this industry.
Yeah. Well, it's a multi-pronged kind of situation that we're in here. And the developers are absolutely one part of the equation of our concern. And we as players also have our hopes and wishes for what these companies are all making for us as well. But I'm also thinking about the people that we're not talking to all the time, because that was my job as a TV producer, right? I had to kind of package this content, this really granular, nerdy, wonderful world that we love to have chats like this about, and make it ready for anybody to watch. And that was, we didn't know we were doing that, but we figured out how to do it. And then I would get stopped every once in a while by, a whole family of people of every age. And they would say, I watched your show on TV. And one of the greatest compliments I got was like, I don't know what the hell you guys are talking about, but that was a lot of fun to watch. And that's like, yes, that's what we want. We want you guys to, watch it and find entertainment out of it. And maybe one day you will become players. And I feel like the business has really forgotten how to do that, really forgotten how to simplify it and make it easy for people to just make the decision to play. If they see, especially on, like, Nintendo doesn't have to do this because they're sitting in the catbird seat. So they don't have to bring their properties to other machines. But if you're Sony and your PlayStation, and you've got all of these investments on these products, the only way to success is to let more people in. I mean, they're both saying that differently. I think they just got to go whole hog with it. They got to go the whole thing and say, you can play this anywhere. In fact, go to Nintendo with their stuff too. Like, honestly, if you've got a game that costs $300 million, if that's your business, put it on everything. Let Nintendo players play Spider-Man 3 or like think about all of the different ways or Halo or whatever, that you can reach people. Nintendo won't because they're not in that position. They don't have to do that. And until they do, they won't. But they're missing out too. I mean, people would love to play their titles on other machines too. Like imagine if you could play there's emulation of all the Nintendo classic stuff right now on the iPhone finally, right? Imagine if there was a Nintendo shop where people could buy classic Nintendo games on their iPhone. That would be so big. It would be such a huge success. But they're not going to do it.
They're not going to do that at all.
And they don't have to. They don't have to. They're in their own industry. But the other guys are in this. It truly feels like an arms race, doesn't it? It feels like this race to see how much stuff they can stack against each other. And they have so much beautiful work and so many different incredible studios. And there's just so much concern. Are you guys hopeful that Xbox in particular, because they're kind of in the hot seat right now, are they going to be able to turn this around, or are we going to see more bad news before we start to see good news?
I think we're going to see. I think we're going to see more bad news. They're going to come back. It's just going to take a while because it's not only Xbox; it's just the industry overall. And one thing I do want to mention, and I know you mentioned about thinking how companies could market outside of just the gaming crowd, where that's one of the things that I've been doing on the side. I've been doing like consulting work with various companies and stuff like that. But also like just a couple of years ago, I released a children's book. And what I did, I wasn't like, let me talk to the gaming outlets. I'm going to talk to a crowd that doesn't know anything about our industry. Let me talk to them. Let me go to the Spanish TV and other media outlets that doesn't cover games. And I think we're missing that. I think right now the closest is having TV shows that relate to like their IPs, like Fallout, huge success, 80 million viewers, I think now, right?
Amazing show.
Arcane, that's with not only the movies but having a theme park, and that's thinking outside the box how to bring a new crowd that eventually will buy your products or get into the ecosystem. But if we just do let's just release games and that's it, time is different compared to back then, man. I think that's the only way I think companies could be successful in this industry, by doing that.
And that retro content is so bloody important too. We didn't even get into that, but the the backwards compatibility on the Xbox, being able to play a lot of those old classic games easily, more of them, and they're improved and they're simpler to play. PlayStation should be doing that as well. Nintendo actually has been doing a pretty good job with, they need more of their classic stuff out there. But I have friends, I don't know if you guys do, that have bought the Switch just because they can play old Super Nintendo games on that machine, And I think, the industry needs to do more of that kind of storytelling to people to say it's welcoming. Because right now, like, if you're not good at Elden Ring, that might be the last thing you play.
Well, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Everybody's talking about it in the games. It's amazing. It's awesome. And then you boot it up and the first boss just kicks your ass. And it's like, okay, well, I suck at video games now. I guess I can't play them anymore. I don't know. I don't know why the business says, okay, that's good. That's good enough,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know. I hope things change soon, man. I love this industry. I was talking to Parris about a couple of days ago. I was like, man, with all these layoffs, man, are we even excited about Summer Game Fest? And then eventually I was like, you know what? We should be excited because there's people that have been working on these games for so long. And this is going to be the first time they're showing this to the public. Let's celebrate those moments, man, because it's rare seeing our industry together. And also,
I'm getting those same emails. They're all super excited to have us there. I know. And I'm totally getting hyped up for it too.
Yeah. And also the Game Awards, the end of the year, that's another time for us to like just celebrate our win, celebrate those moments. It's just been a tough time the past 2 years or so. Even when I used to work at G4, there was layoffs that year with the media gaming outlets during that time too. So our industry overall has just been going through a lot. And we're eventually, it's going to get better. It's just going to take some time.
Yeah. You feeling that, Paris, or you got some other thoughts on that?
No, I'm mostly feeling it. You know, like you said, we were talking about this the other day, and just in the back of my head, I as excited as I will be in the moment, all this other stuff will be in the back of my head at the same time. It's just kind of one of those things.
The pressure on these developers.
Yeah.
You've got grown kids, Paris. Are they players?
Yeah.
Do they?
Yeah. All three of them. It's surprisingly enough, I could hear my oldest daughter, because her room is right above here, being extremely loud. It's probably not coming up on here, playing Fortnite. I know that's what she's playing. She's been playing a lot of Fortnite lately. But yeah, they all game. My two daughters, big into Fortnite. My son, him and I used to play a ton of Destiny together. But he'll play Fortnite, he'll play Halo, stuff like that, Call of Duty, all those kind of games.
What about the smaller ones? Will he invest in Animal Well, or
my oldest daughter will. She's the indie player. She will, like, this is again, like, I've been a big component of Game Pass for that very reason, where it's like I just gave her a sub and she just went off on her own discovering games, a lot of the smaller titles like you're talking about. So I did that with Apple Arcade with my kid, because she's got a lot of friends where their parents will just let them download anything free. And I keep talking to her. It's like, no, there's a lot of insidious stuff out there that, they want your money for whatever. Just play the Apple Arcade stuff. And so she's really cruised through that. And she's definitely growing up with it. She's blown away by the Hogwarts Legacy fidelity, like the experience of that game, she's a Harry Potter fan. Just amazing for her, and I do think, like, we talked a lot about cutting back on budgets and the ambition of some of these titles, maybe to save these developers. But there are certain IP where that has to be expected. And at this point, Last of Us is in there. If a new Uncharted game comes out, if a new Halo game comes out, new Tomb Raider, there are certain IP that you want, but hopefully there'll be some less expensive bets, and we'll get some exciting stuff. I can't wait to see you guys at Summer Game Fest. Absolutely.
Hell yeah, that was a lot of fun last time.
Yeah, it was tons of fun. God, I know you guys love Xbox, and so do I. It's kind of heartbreaking to see the community and the people that we know at Xbox and have known at Xbox for a long time have to go through so much turmoil right now. But the whole business is like this right now. It's crazy.
It is absolutely.
Yeah. And also, I know they're gonna be okay during the Summer Game Fest weekend and all that stuff. It just sucks that everybody's going through this, man. Everybody, man. So hope things get better. I even have friends at Square Enix that, seeing that news, that layoffs, like I'm thinking about them too, so, and other people that works there too. So we'll see what's going to happen, man. It's just changes has just been kind of weird and crazy the past couple of years, man,
It has been.
But things are going to get better overall.
Let's reconnect in a month after Summer Game Fest and after the Xbox event. Let's reconvene, because this is obviously an ongoing conversation. We're not,
of course, 100%. Yeah.
We're going to get some new news, and hopefully it will be good. And here's to better days for all our friends in the games industry. And we know we're going to have tons of awesome things to play and lots of awesome things to talk about. We just want everybody to be okay, and everybody's jobs to be okay, and lots of players to have lots of choice and lots of things to be happy about, because this misery sucks, man. It sucks to see it on every level, from the developers, from the fan base, because it's all people that love games that are just feeling beat up about it right now. On the outside, it just looks like, okay, every industry is going through turmoil, but we all love games and we just want it protected and preserved and growing, and it is a tumultuous time. Very, very, very crazy times. But I'm very appreciative that you guys were here for this. Thank you both so much for taking a little bit of time to talk about it with us. Sorry we couldn't solve it all for you guys at home. But it was a great talk with Parris and Danny from Gamertag. And I'll see you guys in Los Angeles very soon.
Yeah, very soon.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon. And until then, play forever.